Hi, welcome FloodGate family. I am here with Chris Wright, who is the SVP of Sales for Onkos Surgical. Thanks for joining us in Leadership Live.
Well, thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. And FloodGate team, thank you. It's great to be here live in your offices.
Actually here in Tampa, so we're getting Cuban sandwiches later. So anyone else want to come down who's close by, come grab some sandwiches. I'm sure we'll have some left over. But Chris, more importantly, before we get started, I know you well. I know your leadership. It's incredible history. But tell the FloodGate family a little bit about yourself and about Onkos, of course.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you. So I've started my career, 23 years ago in Houston, Texas. Grew up in Louisiana, so it wasn't that far of a stretch for me to get over there and transplant myself. But orthopedics has been in my bloodline for 23 years with every job I've had. Prior to Onkos, a lot of you may know, my Sonics. So that was just such a really fun opportunity to, take a product that had a small cult following and start to make it really mainstream in spine and build a sales team and really start to develop, the future leaders of MedTech. Right. And then Onkos Surgical, which, my attraction to Onkos was, our co-founder, Patrick Tracy, and his why. We don't have a mission, we have a why. Yeah. And that why is to make sure that every patient who has, orthopedic oncology problems gets, the right care and the right device in a personalized manner. So we've got a great team we're building over there, got a great business we're building, and that's where we are now. And really it's just fun. This has been a great career for me so far. I hope I can actually do it another 22 years. I'm not one of those, I'm going to retire at some point. I'm going to keep going. So
awesome. I feel the same way. And the impact you guys are making on patients. Those patients that have already suffered so much to get back to that quality of life. Yeah, pretty impactful. So I've heard some of the stories. That's really, really incredible what you're doing.
It really is.
Now, you built teams. You've been in med device several years.
Yeah.
What does it take to be a med device leader, to be good in this space?
Yeah, so great question. Get asked that a lot when I'm interviewing candidates or people who are interested in getting into management. I think the biggest thing for me, and I look at my career as I came up the ladder, it was really a lot of learning on the job. And so how do humility is one thing that comes. You don't know everything. Early on in my career, I felt like I knew everything and leave me alone. But really then it was learning more and being, making sure you say you're sorry, if you were wrong. I think, also the empathy part is there for people who want to get into MedTech leadership. And really these are across the board, right? Traits and attributes you need to have, but communication is key. It's a couple of times I remember I really didn't communicate well. And I've really had to work on my communication skills, both up and down the chain of command at multiple companies. So, I think those for me are the three key traits and attributes you need for a MedTech leader. Yeah. And delegation, by the way. So I don't want to leave that out. Delegation is key. And I think early on, once again, you're young. You want to do everything you can on your own. But as you develop your leadership style and your skills, the only way you develop other people is by delegating to them, not to push the job off of you, but give them the experience, give them the autonomy and the ownership they need.
Yeah, no, I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, one of the big mistakes I always made was trying to do it, to take over, because I knew how to do it, and the absolute wrong approach. And by the way, I realized I didn't know how to do it. So that was a big lesson I learned, coming up. But so I'm curious, what lessons you might have learned the hard way? Yeah.
Oh, I go back to that. I go back to the humility, piece. There's a couple of times I remember being a young rep in the OR, thinking I had the answer right. I did the training, and the doctor looked at you, and they can read right through you, right? They know when you're making stuff up.
Bravado,
and even if you're not making it up to be, it's bad. It's just you're thinking off the fly. That's one, and then. I think another one is that communication key. I really do believe that the strength of a team and your integrity to be able to communicate a plan is what makes the team powerful, which makes the team grow. So, I think if those two I've learned and in my career and still evolving, especially that communication key, because we've got so many different platforms to communicate on now, and it's not just communicating the plan; it's younger people like text messaging. I still prefer an email or just a good old fashioned phone call.
Right.
It's key. It's key and will always evolve.
Yeah. Whether it's Slack or however, you need to make sure that mission.
And you're bringing up other things that are out there too that I don't use.
Exactly. Well, and make sure they know and not just assume.
Yes,
I've made that mistake too, so that's good. Now, having a great team, especially growing and winning, is recognize and developing talent, right? High performers. What suggestions do you have on really identifying and then developing those individuals?
Yeah, so you look for the intangibles, right? It kind of goes with when you're hiring. You've got all the assessments, whether you're following Gallup or any other program. But I really think as a sales leader, there's those intangibles, and people you've worked with in your past that embody them, and that's everything from the drive and the hunger in sales, right? It's that ability to be able to have a presence. I find that you want to see in leaders, and I just look back at mentors I've had through the years, and one such mentor I had, I worked with for 13 years, and I learned so much from him because he gave me ownership, gave me autonomy to go learn on your own, and he was a good sounding board. But I think that's another key factor as well, is the autonomy that we give our identified high potentials, and then really ask them to tell us what they want, what more do they want. And then find out if that fits into the 3 and 5 year goals of the company. So I think it's a two-way street, right? It can't just be, I'm going to give you this and this to develop you. It's, what do you want? What traits do you want?
So looking for those intangibles, finding out what they really want, giving them the leash to learn. Those are great examples. Now, obviously you mentioned the recruiting part, identifying the great new talent as they're coming on board. You've built a couple teams now.
That's right.
So finding great talent. This is near and dear to my heart, of course, right? So what suggestions do you have?
So find a good recruiter, for one, because there you are.
Thank you.
And I've had a couple in my career too that have really helped, and it helped at different levels that I'm looking for individuals. I think also just the references you get from people that you admire, people that work with you. The way to build talent, and keep talent and grow talent is take the people who are those high potential and ask them, who do they have in their network? That's another great way to go out and source talent as well. And, and what are you looking for? I've already talked about the intangibles, with some of these individuals that are out there. But, I think that when you're in that process and the one who shows you the drive and has that presence, and oddly enough, one thing I've noticed of recent is the follow-up. I'd be amazed how many people don't actually follow up. And in sales, you don't have much time. And follow-up is key, and it can't be 2 days later. It can't be a week later. It's got to be almost immediate. And when I see that, I know that that person's in line for the next step, and then usually is a prime candidate. Yeah, that's some great suggestions. Having a great recruiter, but make sure you work in your network. I think fact is 80% still comes through network, so making sure. Yeah, definitely. And I love the idea of the high performers. You usually know high performers. That's right. So some great suggestions there. Now, there's a lot of people listening or will be listening to this that might be an individual contributor today, but they want to be a leader. So what suggestions do you give for aspiring leaders, people that want to have that role? What should they be doing right now? Yeah, I think ask. You don't know until you ask the question, right? Or ask for the sale. We're in sales, so you got to ask for that sale, right? Always be selling. Or always be closing, when you ask. And I think that's key. So if you work for a big multinational, ask your manager, hey, how can I get into a leadership program? I worked for Baxter at one point, and I wanted to get into their management program. Fortunately, I met my wife, and I wasn't going to stay where I was in that geography. We were going to move to where she was. So they didn't have an opportunity at that point. So I looked outside, and I found startups. And I think that's a great proving ground. If you're willing to take that risk, like I have, then take that risk and prove yourself, because someone's going to notice you, and they're going to develop you, and they're going to move you along. And gosh, if you get the bug to be a startup junkie like I am, then really it's fun. It's fun. It's very rewarding, and you learn. You really learn on the fly, and you learn from some great people. That's awesome. That's what builds some of these great companies. Great leaders and great people. I think it's great to, the simple thing. Hey, what does it take? What do I need to be doing? So many people will just be quiet about it and assume people will know. And if they do the right things, they'll be tapped. That's right. But hey,
you get 100% what you don't ask for.
That's 100% right, right? I mean, if you don't ask for it, you're never going to know what the possibilities are. And if you feel like you've got those leadership skills and you've got that desire, then start early and ask. That's the best way to do it. Don't get frustrated with the answer too. It's find the opportunities. If the opportunity is not there through that pathway, go create another one.
Yeah.
Find one. And that goes back to the networking. That goes back to the reading. It goes back to just listening to people. I mean, you learn so much when you listen out there. So
yeah, that's great suggestions. Now, guys, I've been picking his brain, but I know you probably have some questions as well. So people if you're listening right now, if you just comment below, we're going to take the last 5-10 minutes, answer some of those questions. So take a moment, put a comment in there. You got questions for us to ask. We want to answer it. But before I turn it over to the FloodGate family as a whole, I want to ask the question, little fun one.
Sure.
Your favorite superhero and why?
Yeah. So great question. I think I told you earlier, what my answer might be. And, I think, look, superheroes are great. I love watching the Marvel movies with my kids.
Yeah.
But I got to say that, for me, it's not going to be a Black Panther. It's not going to be Superman. It's going to be the everyday superheroes. I look at what we do, in our company, and I look at those orthopedic surgeons that are taking care of, juvenile patients and taking care of patients. Those are the superheroes, right? I look at mentors that we have, or I've had in the past, and those are superheroes for me as well. And, there's people that took chances, on me, and those are my superheroes. So not to spoil the fun, but I think sometimes those expectations are set high and kids see that, but really, it's the people that are out there that are in our everyday life. And I look back at like my grandfather as being one. He's not in the industry, but his biggest saying was, you only get out of it what you put into it. And so you put minimal, you're going to get minimal return. You put the most and you're smart about it, you're going to get incredible returns at the end.
I think that's such a great lesson to think about the impact, that the superheroes, the surgeons are having to get that juvenile patient that's, might have never thought they could never walk again.
That's right.
Back playing with their friends and kids, and I think you bring up a good point is don't underestimate the impact that you can have on someone else. You might not be able to fly, but if you're putting excellence into it, you're making an impact somewhere to some people.
Most definitely. I mean, that's why we're in this industry. A lot of people say like, I'm here to help the patient. And I think a large majority, that's true, but I just see the impact in my 22 years that I've made with the surgeons and patients' lives. And that's what really, drives me every day is that no matter whether it's a device that's been around for 30 years, it's making an impact, or it's something new and it's disrupting and it's new technology, that has the potential to really help the patient. So you get it in that surgeon's hand, you get it into a great salesperson's hand, that's a superhero too, right? Because they're delivering it. They're flying it like a caped superhero would to the surgeon and to the end user to have great results. So.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer. And we're recruiting superheroes every day. We got a whole nother thing.
You need a Hall of Justice back here somewhere,
Exactly. I definitely want the bat signal. Maybe that's what we'll get next.
That would be awesome.
So
I can see a big ass flying up there.
So we got a few questions from the audience here. So here's the first question here. It looks like Brittany here from Tampa here. Your favorite leader? You mentioned some superheroes and leaders. So is there one that comes to mind that, and what they did maybe for you?
Yeah. So I look back and, for 13 years, I was with a gentleman by the name of Scott Ludecker, and he really saw something in me and, allowed me to really have that autonomy and develop and learn. And, I appreciate, what he's been able to do for me. I look at, right now at Patrick Tracy at Onkos, and, he had the vision to start this company, and he's a very, very good leader. And I look at at what he's given us as a company, the opportunity to do. And I think those in the industry are my two favorite. I've got actually one who's sort of in the industry. He was a president and CEO of Barnes Jewish at one point. Good family friend. He taught me a lot in a brief amount of time. With him on what I need to do to be a leader. So I look at him as a superhero for teaching me.
That's cool. Great. We got another question here from Danny. Do you think people are born as great leaders, or is that something that can be developed? Where's your thought on that? Great question, Danny.
Yeah, I think yes, there's traits that you have as a good leader. I see that, and some children I've coached in junior, little league, practices
Yeah.
and football. You can see the leaders, but it takes the development, of those traits and those skills through the years to master and become a good leader. I think it's finding somebody who's willing to take the time, to develop you. That makes great leaders.
Right. Yeah. You start with some of the raw talent, but then if you don't work on it, you're not getting there. Or conversely, people might not have their raw talent, but they work on it. They become great leaders as well. So it can go both ways.
It can go both ways. Yep. Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
I get it. Is there an example of intangibles that you've, that have larger impact than others, or that are specific to med device? You mentioned, the intangibles for candidates, I believe, is what the question's leading to.
So I think the drive, you see in individuals, you can tell when somebody sits down if they're just going through the interview process, or if that drive and passion comes out for them to want that job and to why, and the why behind why they want the job, right? It's not just a paycheck. It's not just a job. I mean, you want a career, you want to help, you want to develop your skills. And I think that's the biggest one is the drive. And, I see it, a lot, but it's usually the one who has it the most that I find wins in my organizations.
Yeah.
And I think back right now countlessly to, I've probably interviewed, I don't know, a couple of hundred people in my lifetime. And I look back at the ones that actually got the job and I see what they're doing today. And they had that drive. Yeah. They wanted to stay in this industry and they wanted to make themselves the best. And some of them now are VPs at startups. Yeah. And some of them are area directors now. So I think that's the big thing is the drive and passion.
It's that, and you see that I always say it's people when they hit the wall. Some people will sit down, but the ones that will figure out how to dig the hole underneath or build the ladder to go over, those are the ones that usually end up being the winners and the leaders. And it's that mentality, of great, I got a wall. What do I got to do? I'm not going to sit down.
I think it was Hannibal who said that, it's and not Hannibal Lecter, by the way, but one of the great leaders, of a long time ago is that, I will find a way, if I can't do it, I will find a way to go through the obstacle. And I think that's the drive and passion that I talk about.
Yeah. Crossing the Alps with elephants.
Exactly
I would say he definitely pushed the envelope on that
100% right. Yeah.
This one's from Ashley. What are the most excited about the future of Onkos? What most excites you? About the future of Onkos?
Oh, I think right now, we've got a couple of products in the innovation pipeline that really excite me. I think what we just got the FDA approval for the first, 3D printed pelvis. And what that's going to do for not just oncology, but for the revision sector, orthopedic complex revision, and our ability to get that out to our surgeons faster and get that to the patients faster, not having to go through certain, regulatory hurdles to get there. I think that really excites me and what we're doing as far as products go. But I think what we're doing at Onkos every day and helping these individuals that require, the special needs and the personalized care, that excites me every day. It really does.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys tuning in to this episode of Leadership Live. Chris Wright. Chris, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Joe.
For being here. It was a great experience. Please, if you have additional questions, comment below. I'll track Chris down. We'll get your questions answered because incredible tidbits of information and knowledge. I know a lot of people have left with some additional arrows in the quiver. So the FloodGate family thanks you.
Yeah.
We thank you.
Well, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day as well.